Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. This is podcast number 12, where we're entering a new area, away from story and into theme. But first, I need to explain what I mean by theme in this context. Many people have ideas of what a theme is when they talk about a project or a new idea. And quite often you'll find in meetings people describe, or rather ask you, what is it about? To which most people think, well, they must mean the theme. In reality, quite often, though, that question is answered either by the writer rambling on with the plot, or a producer coming up with some snappy aphorism like crime doesn't play or love will always win out. Or in some cases, if we're taking documentaries and so on, people will actually come up with a straightforward, well, it's about these people on a boat crossing the Atlantic. And in all of these cases, one can argue the point that you're heading towards some sort of theme, some sort of underpinning idea. But that's not the idea of theme that I want to put forward. The idea of theme I want to discuss over the next few podcasts is the idea that all narratives are united by some emotionally deep feeling that every human being experiences. And this is one of the fundamental reasons that screen narratives work across cultures, i.e. that all of us as human beings have some very core emotions that the screen actually allows us to experience indirectly and in some cases very directly. And it's because of this that the narratives actually work as a whole. Now, to put this in some sort of context, I need to give you a few thoughts on what a theme might be and where it comes from emotionally. And to do this, I need you to think a little bit about yourself for a moment. I'm about to say something I think is true of everyone who'll be listening to this podcast. It's a very simple statement. It's a very profound one in the sense that if you think about it, you could be anyone, anywhere on the planet, at any age. And the basic statement is this, that you at some time in your life have been treated unfairly. Now, at first that might seem like an obvious statement. Of course everyone's been treated unfairly, so what? But the truth is, that unfairness doesn't actually go away, because most unfairness occurs when you're a child and you have no power. You often, if not all the time, feel that adults are treating you unfairly, or older or bigger children are treating you unfairly. And most of the time you can do nothing about this. The result of this is you build up a certain level of resentment that is actually unrequited. The problem with most actions of injustice that we experience is that we never have the chance to go back and correct them. Net result is our internal emotional landscape is made up of senses of injustice, the idea that we weren't treated fairly. Now, as a result of this, our emotional landscape contains that resentment, that sense of being treated unfairly, and holds it there. But then when we put up on the screen a character who's been treated unfairly, then all of a sudden we feel for that character, not in a rational way, not in the way we were talking about stories where you're following a cause through a line in a narrative. No, this is about pure, raw emotion. The fact that you're actually touched by the evidence of an injustice. The fact that a character has been treated unfairly. Now, this approach to narrative, this approach to character is an old, well-known fact. And in fact so well known that in fact writers in every form and storytellers in every culture have often used a trick called the undeserved misfortune to ensure that audiences connected with their particular character. The simple truth here is that as soon as you introduce a character, you give them an undeserved misfortune. The fact they slip on a banana skin, or the fact that they get treated unfairly in an interview, or the fact that some little accident occurs that clearly they didn't deserve but they get the blame for. All of these things instantly garner sympathy for that character. They may in fact themselves not be a likeable character at all, or in fact they may be an alien or a peanut. But in fact, because they've suffered this undeserved misfortune, a huge percentage of the audience at that very moment in time is feeling sympathy for them, and they're engaged by them. It's an old trick used by storytellers for a very long time. Now, if this emotional hook was all there was to the idea that we've all been treated unfairly, it would be a useful trick. and great when trying to establish characters and engage an audience with them, which of course you will all do. However, it goes way beyond this in my view. In my view, these sorts of emotion, these big emotions, actually act as unifying elements within a narrative. And it's the ability of the creators to actually work on that unifying element that actually ultimately makes a work stand out from being emotionally satisfying to just merely engaging. So theme, therefore, is about raw emotion. And let's start with the very first one, this desire for justice and how it works. This is all about the fact that we actually live in societies and in a world where we know things are not fair. There is never an equitable situation at all times. People are treated unfairly every single day. And as a result, we have a desire to see that justice corrected in some way, shape or form. Therefore, we seek out narratives that actually deal with issues of justice, because they in a way reflect our need for justice in our everyday lives. The story itself may be about someone or something that we will never personally be engaged in. However, if it actually deals with the idea that someone's been treated unfairly and there is a need for justice to win out, then we will undoubtedly go with that narrative. Now, if this is used as a unifying force, then it becomes a very powerful emotional tool, not least of which because if you then apply the principle that every scene and every character is a reflection on the notion of justice throughout the whole narrative, then as the narrative progresses, your emotions are being focused throughout the whole experience. You move from the neutral position at the beginning of a narrative, when there may be many emotions playing around inside your skull, to the point that halfway through the narrative, by this stage, your emotions are fully focused on this desire for justice. And by the climax, as these little moments upon little moments, all touching you in raw emotional feelings about the notion of injustice, are built one upon the other, the emotional impact of the climax is guaranteed. This is one of the reasons that one can determine between one project and another as to whether or not thematically it's strong. If, when you read a script or you watch a film, you realise in fact that several scenes are nothing to do with the main theme of the work, you can guarantee that emotionally the work will be less powerful, and therefore the climax undermined. And in this sense, the emotions are diffuse, and you're lost. You did not know quite what to feel about the work, and certainly you may have been engaged at moments, but the actual overall impact has been diminished, because thematically it was not a whole.